happiness in a frame of like simcha, right? Like simcha is like, exciting and man, nishtana, like that, you know what I mean? You sing these songs on the Pesach table, the whole thing, right? And you have those moments of like huge moments of like joy and or you go to like your wedding, right? Like when you're dancing with your friends and your family, like that moment, what dancing with your wife, like that moment, right? So you have those moments, and I would put those in a frame of like simcha, or joy, this type of thing. But when I say happiness, I'm saying it from the standpoint of spirituality, meaning that happiness, you know, has a lot to do with the perception of pleasure, right? And that pleasure is usually in association with, like we're saying, like joy, happiness, some huge experience, some physical experience. But it's really the perception of pleasure, right? Because there's people who work out in the gym, like you play sports, I play sports. There's people who worked out in gyms and they'll work out in the gym and they're struggling, they're in pain, they're about to die physically, they feel like it, right? But it's a joy because you know that you're getting bigger, stronger, faster. And that's your goal for being there, right? Your goal in the gym is to work out to become bigger, stronger, faster, right? And so that concept of bigger, stronger, faster, right? That term bigger, stronger, faster is that intention, right? So even though you're going through pain, even though you're going through difficulties or you're going through challenges or you have to break through a limitation, there's a sense of accomplishment with that, right? Or like even like, like even when a kid or like, person, like I did a lot of stuff in entertainment, the dance movement type space. And so like even when you see like people learning a new dance step, you may do it wrong, this, blah, blah. You may even be making mistakes in front of people, but it's a sense of safety with that process of not knowing how to do it or making mistakes because it's clear what the ultimate objective is, right? And so the thing is, it's like when we talk about this idea of happiness, we have to create a new definition for it, right? Because for us, happiness is not determined on being basimcha, right? Happiness for us is knowing that we're on the right path, dealing with exactly what Hashem wants us to deal with at this moment in life. And this, what He's providing for me and He's putting me through is a gift because it's transforming my soul, it's preparing my soul to be in a place where it can be a part of Mechaye Hamatim. And when it's that time of Mechaye Hamatim, all of my family members, all my cousins, friends, people, everything, everyone's going to be reincarnated. That's why we have the same bodies, but the perfected same body, right? So if I understand that that's my destination, hey, it doesn't matter what happens, man. My job is to respond to it in the way that God wants us to, right? So like that idea of happiness, it's not. It's like no, that's commercialism. Like you want to be happy, come to Disneyland, the happiest place on earth, right? That is the secular world's understanding of happiness. That definition does not work for us because you're saying that if I'm not in the happiest place on earth where I'm eating cotton candy and eating soda pop and hot dogs and cotton and all these cotton candies, if I don't know if I said that twice, but the point is just saying me, if I'm not having that, that means that I'm not happy, right? If I'm not experiencing these experiences, like, oh man, we got to do something fun, man. We got to do something. We got to. So it's saying that if I remove that power from the system, right? I remove that power from the system and say, hey, you know what? Actually, you know what? I'm happy now. I'm here in this world to go over my tikkun. I'm not in the mindset of Adam and Chava. Adam and Chava were in the perfect reality. They were already there, and they were convinced by Nachash that they were not in the perfect place. Right? That's what the Nachash. He convinced us we're not in the perfect place. The Nachash in our generation is consumerism. The Nachash comes and says, you got to get the new iPhone. You got to get a bigger car. You got to make more money. You got to do these things. Go, 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 go. And it's okay to want luxury. It's okay. It's okay. It's in the vegetation level, right? Right? The rock level is a guy who just wants to survive. Vegetation level is a person who wants he wants luxury. The animal level is the level of a person who wants power, prestige, influence. And then the human level is the one who wants the straight connection with God, with no intermediary. He wants the source of the light, right? And so that's that dynamic, right? That's understanding that mechanism of saying, like, hey, you know what? The system that I live in wants to convince me that my happiness is determined on these external elements. Now, as much as I may understand that intellectually, right? We have to understand it's a knee jerk reaction. It's built into who we are, right? When you ask a kid what do you want to be when he grows up, and he says like a lawyer, a doctor, or astronaut, or these things. Number one, he's trying to get approval, and number two, he's projecting a desire, a curiosity that he has in life into a job. So again, it's not about dissing jobs, this type of thing. We have to work, we have to earn money. It's a halacha, right? But the point is just saying that the bigger issue, right, in this conversation is saying that, but when that becomes our identity as a person, then we miss out on what the purpose is. And the purpose is to correct my soul. And if I know that what I'm going through is correcting my soul, I'm not going to have sad days. I may have difficult days. I may have days like, man, this is hard. Like that workout. You like, hey, you work out that first day. And you know I'm not working out like that these days. You know what I'm saying? But I walk. You know what I'm saying? But there was a time where I have to work out right. And I just remember there were times where like if you took a break and you came back and you went really hard, that next day you woke up, your body was just like torn up. Like you couldn't even move because you're so sore, right? And and the thing is, and you still got to go and work out that next day, right? Right? You got to go and work out that next day. And so, but you're getting somewhere though. And so sometimes there's days like that. There's seasons in your life where it's just like, hey, you know what? Things are not working out. Things are not going. I don't know how this is going to work itself out. I don't know what the solution is going to be. And you have to be like, hey, the God created that so I can say, God, please help me. I don't know. That's why he created it, only for that reason. Because even if I didn't feel that way, I'm still in the situation. I don't know. My ego may tell me stuff. Oh yeah, I know how this is going to work. This is going. I know how it's going to work. But the reality is that I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know what this afternoon holds. Right? I don't know. I don't know what it holds. Right? So so from that perspective, it's just saying that anything that tells me that I do is ego. Right? That's what I'm saying. Like when you learn enough Musar, like we're learning, you should get to the point where you're like, hey, you don't even leave your house without saying the Shema. Like we learned by Chab HaYashar. Because you don't know what's out there. You don't know what you're going to be posed with. You don't know what type of forces, you know what type of judgment, everything. You don't know. And people are like, oh man, you can't be paranoid like that. It's not about paranoid. It's awareness in this humility that God is protecting me, right? Not because I'm making the right moves. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, so on that point, I want to continue on this great discussion about um, the halachic relationship between, the non-Jewish world and Judaism, and how does the Torah view it? How do the sages? I'm putting some earphones on. Hold on a second. Hello. So is it better now? Otino, is it better? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's clear. It's clearer now.
Like much better?
Yeah. I mean, I could
All
hear you before, but now it's like
right.
4K.
It's well, you could actually use the audio for something. All right. So okay, so we're in this thing because the key thing is number one, we got to be clear on these things, right? We got to be really clear on this. So we're reading a halakhic discourse on how do we connect the light force of the creator to the other nations. That's what we're talking about. Let's get out of the surface. Let's go inside. This is everything's Kabbalah. Everything is Kabbalah. Everything is a transfer of the light from one place to another place. And what is the mechanism? Oh, but we learned in Halakha. Halakha is the freeway. Halakha is just the freeway that allows the cars to drive from one destination to another. The light is around us all the time. We're surrounded by light right now. Okay, you can't see it. You're surrounded by light. But in order for me to filter it, in order for me to utilize it, in order for me to connect to it, to draw it into my inner essence, I need a freeway, right? That's what they're learning. That's the power. Like once you understand what the Kabbalah is, and you understand that there's the language of how it's communicated, then you understand. Oh, okay. Well, that's what the halakha is basically communicating Kabbalah. It's communicating the light over here. This is how it's transferred over here. And if you do this, you block the light in this way. And and people think, no, it's about sin, good deed, righteous, unrighteous, sins. Always no, that's not that. We're talking about energies. The whole thing's balancing energies. So when we're learning about the halakhic relationship between ourselves as Jews, as it relates to the Torah, as it relates to the other nations. This isn't about judgment. They're saying, how do we administer this thing? We all want geula. We all want geula. Everybody wants the redemption, right? Everybody wants the redemption, right? So how do we get there? And we know that the other nations play a humongous role in that redemption, right? We just read the whole thing from Isaiah yesterday. They're supposed to come and say, hey, we want the halacha. That's it. We're in. That's it. Bye. Let's go. And they're never going to fight with each other again after that. So this is the destination, right? So everything is Kabbalah. All Torah is Kabbalah. Every expression is Kabbalah. Now, something explicitly, like that's the benefit of um, Rabbi, learning Rav Ashtak's introduction to Kabbalah, because he'll show you that the Zohar, why mix it a Kabbalistic text? Because the Zohar is only dealing with specific aspects, is dealing with form and substance of form. So he's only dealing with light and vessel. That's it. That's all the Kabbalah, that's all the Zohar is dealing with. It's not dealing with abstract, how one perceives it, different ways of understanding it. Rabbi Shimon doesn't go into that. It doesn't address essence, the essence of these sources, the essence of what Chokhmah comes from per se, right? It understands Chokhmah as an expression of a light, of a vessel called Chesed and a light called Chesed, right? And they represent this energy expression, but they still we're not objectifying what it is. We're not projecting. We're just accepting it is for what it is, and the essence of Chesed, right? The inner essence that is an expression of the eternal, which is the creator. We don't even deal with that, right? So that's the Kabbalah. That's the Kabbalah. Other texts are dealing with other elements, right? But none of the texts deal with essence. You know what I'm saying? Like you could say the Gemara is dealing with abstract form, right? So the Gemara is going into the discourse of what the Mishnah is saying, right? So that is this rabbi says like this rabbi says like that, this different dynamic, blah blah blah. So that's dealing with abstract form, right? So when we understand the different levels that are being communicated, we can understand that at the essence of all the literature is form of substance. What's the light? What's the vessel? Everything you say. So when you're reading something, what's the light? What's the vessel? You know what I'm saying? So right here, we're talking about the light being the Torah, the vessel being the human being. One vessel being the vessel of a Jew, the vessel of a non-Jew. So how does the vessel of a Jew administer this light of the Torah to the vessel of the non-Jew? This is the machlokas. This is the discussion. This is the disagreements, right? And they had different perspectives about history. All right, so let's keep going. Yeah. We gotta be clear, because we just don't want to learn without kavana. We gotta talk these things out. All right. So let's go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, contemplation of conversion, right? So, so anyway, we don't have to do such a review because it was just yesterday. But the thing is just to refresh our memory a little bit. Um, there's a big discussion of what aspects are permissible to teach, right? Is it just the written Torah? Is it not the written? Is it the written Torah, not the oral Torah? Is it not the written Torah and the oral Torah? Could it be the written Torah and the oral Torah, but not the level of secrets? There's different perspectives, right? So now we're dealing with a particular category of light, right? So we're dealing with the aspect of administering the light to a vessel that could already be a Jew, right? Because a person who converts already had that soul, already had that capacity to receive that light on Mount Sinai, right? And so that dynamic of that capacity exists in every generation, in different souls, and and a lot of the souls are not even in families who identify with the traditions of Mount Sinai, right? So anyway, so with that being said, so that's what we're learning about now, right? Okay, the Mahashara, the Mahasharawa, okay, whatever. He comments on this in Shabbos. He said it permits the teaching of the Torah to a prospective proselyte, which is a convert. The Mashla positions his dispute. Okay, fine. So basically, he's starting with this point. He says it's permitted of teaching a person who's thinking about converting or a person who wants to convert. You're permitted to teach him the Torah, right? And so he's bringing that Rabbi Kiva Eger, who's also is a very contemporary rabbi, argues this. He says the moral position is disputed by Rabbi Kiva Eger and by. Okay, so here's two rabbis who disagree with. I'm trying to Masha Harala. I mean, I'm assuming that he's like a Moraine. I mean, a acronym. Anyways, so he brings a point that it's permitted to teach a person who's converting the Torah, and then he brings two sources right after that they disagree. Okay, that's his point. He says support for his position is found in the commentary of the Miri, right? The Sanhedrin, the Miri states explicitly that it is permitted to give him instructions to the prospective convert. Indeed, Miri goes beyond the Mahara. This is the Mahar Sha'ara. He says position and declares that a non-Jew is forbidden to study the Torah only if he does not intend to apply it when he does not apply what he has learned in practice. Right. All right. So the Miri is obviously a very big fan of non-Jews learning Torah. Probably if we learn more about his history, maybe we can see insights to his life, why he feels this way. I don't know. But anyways, but he feels this way. But his main issue is making sure that if you're going to teach a non-Jew the Torah, that he has to have, or she has to have the intentions of keeping what you teach, right? Okay. And he says, okay, so he brings this, so he brings it. He says he finds evidence bolstering the positions of the Maharal in the Midrashic statement. The Midrash Rabbah implies, who's talking about? Oh, no, Zechariah. Well, Midrash Rabbah implies in Deuteronomy that although a non-Jew dare not observe the Sabbath, he may do so with impunity once he has undertaken to the convert, even though he has not yet undergone the conversion ritual. Okay, so let's listen to this. So the Midrash implies that although a non-Jew dare not observe the Sabbath, he may do so with impunity once he has undertaken to convert, even though he has not undergone the conversion ritual. These boys is wilding out, bro. Did you hear that? Okay. So he says, it may be noted that the Tosfos opinions that a non-Jew may observe Shabbat under certain circumstances. So here's 2 points, bro. This is crazy. This is massive, bro. This is you have no. I mean, this is massive. All right. So there's a Tosfos in Yerushalmi that opinion that says that a non-Jew may observe Shabbat under certain circumstances. Certainly argues Erev Tuva, the prohibition against studying Torah does not apply to a non-Jew who reaches a decision to convert. So anybody who says they want to be a Jew and they want to keep the laws, that's it, bro. That's it. That's it, bro. Like, I mean, it's right there. If anybody who says something like that, they hating on the sages. He says, Rav Chaim Sofer. Oof. He ruled that a prospective convert may be taught. Wait, Rav Chaim Sofer, he writes in the Minhaya Chaim. He says the rule that a prospective convert may be taught the written law and definitely the halakot without applying analysis. He says the Machan Hayam bases this ruling upon the thesis that the study of the written law and the definite halakot is forbidden to non-Jews only by virtue of rabbinic decree. This decree asserts that Mahara Hayim does not extend to non-Jews preparing for conversion. This is crazy, bro. So he brings a teshuva that says rules that it is interpretive that a candidate for conversion may be taught the Shema and the order of prayers so that he may be able to fulfill those obligations immediately upon conversion. Failure to do so prior to conversion, he opinions constitute placing a stumbling block before the blind. All right. So before we go further, so any thoughts, reflections on this section of dealing with the vessels that come in to with the desire to want to keep the Torah, that want to convert.
So Ralph, I kind of want you to like break this down to me a little more because I feel like I'm kind of missing something. Like what is this? What are they saying? Like just straight.
Yeah. So it's like this. So right now they're discussing what is the halacha
Mm-hmm.
as it relates to a person who wants to convert. Because we learned earlier about just a non-Jew period that wants to do certain things, right? So you could teach a non-Jew Torah if he wants to do the things. So now they're dealing specifically with a person who converts. What are the laws there, right? And so what he's saying is that basically, like, so he's saying some humongous things. So he's bringing a series of sources now that are speaking on this issue, right? And so he starts off by saying he brings a sage who wrote a commentary in Masechet in the Masechet Shabbat that says that it's permitted to teach a non-Jew Torah, right? You're permitted. You're permitted to teach a non-Jew Torah if he's looking or she's looking to convert. Now he brings 2 other rabbis who disagree with it, Rabbi Akiva Eber and other people, right? These 2 different people. If you hold by them, you hold by them. If you do hold by them, you do. You don't, right? If you do, you do. You don't, you don't, right? But he brings another support for this sage's opinion with the Miri, right? And the Miri is another sage who writes on these issues, and he says he's permitted. And we read about him earlier in that last section, but he says over here it's permitted to teach a person who wants to convert. You could teach them the Torah as long as they want to keep it. Then the thing he brings another source that says that that there's an implication. Okay, it's not a halacha. It's an implication inside the midrash that implies that a non-Jew a person who's not circumcised yet, for example, right, can still keep Shabbat even though if he's planning on convert, even though he hasn't fully converted. That's what it says. That's he says the implication. And then he says, and then he brings an actual Tosfos, because you have Rashi, you have Tosfos, right? So you have a bring a Tosfos that says that a non-Jew may observe Shabbat under such circumstances. So the point that the main thing is, right? The main thing is saying that even when it comes to keeping of the halacha, that there's a wide range of opinions on what that means, right? In terms of can you express it, can you not express it? I'm gonna bring the screen back in a second. So he's saying in this section, he's saying like, okay, there's opinions that say that a person wants to convert has to learn the Torah. He has to learn written and oral, right? And then he brings a couple sources that says, no, that's not true. Then he brings a source that says, well, you could teach them the written Torah and then the halakot that they need, without deep analyzation, right? So you don't have to go into how Rashi says it, right? You don't have to go into why the halakha is what it is, right? You don't have to go into those things, right? But um um anyways, so the point is just saying that that's one opinion. And then there's another opinion that goes as far as to say that a person there he says there's certain opinions that give the impression, or he brings midrashic sources that say that it's implied that a Jew can undertake it. Now you have to see exactly what the Mishra Rabbah is exactly saying, because he's writing what he's saying. He's writing what the Midrash Rabbah implies. I don't know exactly what the Midrash Rabbah is saying. I have to go and see what it's saying. You know what I'm saying? Those are two different things, right? So basically he's opening up the gamut and saying when it comes to a person who's converting, you could say everything goes, and then there's opinions who says only certain things goes. That's what he's saying over here, right? And so he's going through those discourses because does that make sense? Where it's at?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's going to the next section where we're going, which is reasons and secrets, right? Reasons and secrets. He says another limitation. Oh wait, you can't see it. Hold on one second.
It makes me think about like the power of kavanah, like the power of intention.
Anyways, okay. So the point is like this is totally just got thrown off right now. Anyways, so the point is like this is saying that conversation is open because like at the end of the day, like if someone says, like say someone said, like I have a friend of mine who has friends in his neighborhood and he lives in a very tough neighborhood and he's an Orthodox Jewish guy and he invites, his friends over for Shabbat. Now the issue over there would be like, okay, do those people plan on keeping Shabbat and he's teaching them about it? Is he trying to sell them on Shabbat? You know what I'm saying? Or is he just inviting them over, which is also problematic too? You know what I'm saying? So it has to be like thought out. Like, what is your intentions? If I'm a teacher, like say you're a teacher, right? One day, right? And you want to like think about like students, this, you're out, people know that you know Torah, they see you out there, whatever, blah, blah. So how do you deal with it? Right? So if you know that there's a person that's coming in, like say for example, like you have these like missionary type people, right? And they like come in and they want to learn, right? Because they want to learn what the Jews say, right? But you can see that this person doesn't have any real intention of keeping anything. They just want information. So then it would be forbidden to teach that person, right? Why? Not because it's my opinion or I'm not feeling this person. I may like this person. They may even offer me tons of money, right, for my time. But if that's what it is, there's no kedusha, and so therefore it's an avera. But according to the way we understand it, that if people come to me and say, "Hey, I'm a descendant of Israel, and I want to keep those statutes, laws, and commandments," you're a rabbi. Let's learn Torah together. That's it. And I can ask them, well, what are your intentions with the Torah that we learn? I want to live the statutes, laws, and commandments. That's it. That's it. Not because it's my opinion, because this is the Masurah that we have. Okay? Not because it's my opinion. I decided, I think this is the right thing to do. That's not Judaism. Judaism is every desire that we have, there's a way to do it. Some people like cheeseburgers, right? Well, we don't mix meat and cheese. Okay, but there's vegan cheese, non-dairy cheese, right? Because the issue is dairy. I'm just making it as a joke. But the point is just saying, like, the point is just saying, they have that. But the point is just saying that when we think about this idea of doing things in life, we have to do things the way God and our tradition and our sages say, because if not, we could just turn up and do the wrong thing. Bro, I could have like a bunch of students, bro, they paying me millions of dollars, right? And they're paying millions of dollars, but none of them have any intention to keep the Torah, and it's just intellectual to them. So in my mind, I could be, oh man, I'm feeding my family, I'm doing this, I'm giving all the tzedakah, all these great things. But the way that I received it was not from a way that there was kedusha. But I can't see that. My ego, my objective form is not going to let me see it. It's going to let me see other things. So that's why I have to trust the halakha, right? That's why I have to trust the halakha. So the halakha is saying that what if you have a student and he's like, hey man, I'm keeping Shabbos, man, I don't care. I can't, I need it. You could say that there's opinions that say that a person who's converted this, you have to look at them. You're not saying he can do it, but you're not judging him for doing it, maybe. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, that is important to know. Not because I said, because there's a Tosfos that says it. Now, do I need to understand what he means by that? When Tosfos said under certain circumstances, what does that mean? I don't know. Maybe his life's at risk. I don't know. I don't know. What does that actual midrash say in Deuteronomy? I don't know. I haven't learned it inside. But the point is saying that if I wanted to understand, I would go even deeper into the sources and get a framework and then be able to kind of come to a conclusion. Obviously, I would consult with other rabbis. That's why I have a rabbi, right? I just don't read and make up things on my own and say, okay, well, I read it now, understand. No, if it's something I'm not clear on, I run it by, Chief Rabbi Pinchas, Book Hashem, right? And so that's the reality, right? And so, so anyway, so yeah, so that's where we're at with that. But I do want to do this next section. You got time for it?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Let's get it.
All right. So next section I think is on the deeper parts, which is extremely important. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so reasons and secrets. So that would be like the deep commentaries, and the secrets would be Kabbalah, right? So I want to, all right, so just keep going. Let's just go. He says, another limitation upon the prohibition against teaching Torah to non-Jews is expressed by the Mahashara. I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to pronounce it in English. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, he says in Hagiga, he states that the prohibition is limited to the instructions in the reasons and the secrets of the mitzvot. He says this position is based on the fact that the terminology employed in the formula of prohibition is not it is not permitted to teach the words of Torah to non-Jews, but rather it is not permitted to give over the words of Torah to non-Jews. Similarly, Miri Hagiga speak of the prohibition against transmitting the secrets of Torah to a non-Jew. The Masharala, the Mahara, they say no, this is Maharsha, Maharsha, the Marsha. I don't know. Anyway, it states that the prohibition against teaching reasons and secrets extends to instructions in the aspect of Noahide commandments as well. He says in a direct opposite to the latter point, the Miri in the Sanhedrin indicates that as so far that the content of the Noahide concerns, there is no limitation upon the nature of instructions ones may provide. Okay, so we'll go back to it. He says it would appear then that according to the position of the Mashar Arala that there's no restriction upon teaching the factual content of any portion of the Torah to a non-Jew. It says he says it makes a similar distinction between reason and secrets. The other aspect of Torah study The other aspect of Torah study, insofar as the prohibition is concerned, but nevertheless cautions against teaching the Torah in any form to a non-Jew. A similar position is maintained by the Tshuva of Eliyahu Mizrahi Mazria. So he added, this authority added, however, that it is not forbidden to disclose the rational understanding of underlying a mitzvah or law only when it is possible to avoid doing so. When, however, one cannot readily eradicate oneself from such a situation, even this information may be provided. And he says the Masharallah in his comments make no reference to the distinction between the study of the Noahide commandments and the other aspects of Torah. Since he fails to draw such a distinction, there appears that there's a strong reason to assume that as he has stated earlier, the Masharallah does not permit a non-Jew to study any area of Torah as long as he does permit any non-Jew to study any area of Torah as long as he avoids the reasons and mysteries of the mitzvah. The Masharallah was certainly understood this in this manner in his tshuva. Okay, so another person didn't agree with him. However, in recent authorities, Aaron Walkinen, he wrote a Tshuva Zekin Aaron. He argues that this argument. He says this argumentum is necessarily fallacious, and that is quite on the contrary. When the Mashar's comments are examined in context, it becomes evident that this is not at all his intention. The ban against a non-Jew studying Torah is formulated in the Gemara in two places. And Sanhedrin cites the words of Rav Yochanan, who declares a non-Jew engaged in his Torah study is culpable for death. And he says Hagiga records the dictum of Rav Ami, who stated it is not permitted to give even over words of Torah to the non-Jew. The Masharallah distinction is permitted upon the terminology employed by Rav Ami. And he says, and Rav Yochanan stated is more general in nature and does not lend itself to the same inference. Indeed, Rav Ami stated, which is based upon a passage in Psalms. I know he's just running through these things, but I'll show. He says a psalm seems redundant as by the Tosfos, since Rav Yochanan had already possessed a pinnacle. Okay, okay. So what he's basically saying here is that when it comes to this idea of the secrets, like the Kabbalah and the in-depth commentaries, right? He's saying that's where it's they're going back and forth on this idea of basically saying like how it was not permitted And basically, the challenge here is that they're trying to interpret the words of the sage and trying to apply them to this specific issue, right? And it's not exactly clear. So what you're reading is the discourse of people trying to different understanding of the words of this particular sage on how we deal with this particular issue. And this issue is there, right? And he says, so he says, Rabbi Yochanan has already, positioned, his prohibition. He says, Moses was commanded us in the Torah, it was the inheritance of Israel. He says, it is this difficulty which the Maharala seeks to dispel. Rav Yochanan's dictum is all encompassing and prescribes the Torah study of any nature, including excluding the study of the 7 laws of Noah, commandments. He says study of the latters are specifically pertains to non-Jews as stated in Sanhedrin. Rav Ami of statements declares that Zakan Aaron it declares Zakan Aaron in his analysis of the Masharal's comments. So he wrote this book that analyzes comments, and he's saying that other people who learn these statements, who derive that all people could learn whatever as long as they want to keep it. Similarly, like the Miri says, he's saying that people are not understanding it correctly and they're learning it out of context. I know it's a lot, but whatever. But we're getting through it. And also keep in mind, we're talking about halakha. So even though our intellectually we're like learning how all these things are coming together in this language, our soul knows all of this. Everything that you're learning right now and I'm learning, our soul already knows this. So we have to have that duality, which is allowing ourselves to adjust to this new language of discourse, of halakhic discourse, right? And then, but at the same time, knowing that our soul is resonating with everything that's saying. All right. So he says, although a non-Jew may study the 7 laws of Noah, declare the 7 commandments, may say the 7 commandments. He said declares Ramami, he may not be he said, induced to their reasonings and mysteries. According to his understandings of the Mashallah, other areas of Torah are totally forbidden to non-Jews based off Rav Yochanan's statements that they're not pre of Rami Igdud. Okay, so the issue here that he's bringing out is a very interesting one. Okay, so on this particular aspect, before we were dealing with converts, right? And so we were dealing with a person who converts. How much of the Torah do they learn? How much of the Torah do they not learn? We went through that, right? And we came to this understanding that there's different opinions that say they should learn everything this, but when it comes to a person convert, there's very extreme views that even that they under certain circumstances they could keep all of Shabbos was equivalent, which is to keeping all the mitzvahs of the Torah, right? So this is a big deal, right? And some people say they can learn everything, Torah Kula, whatever they want to learn, they want to convert. Some people say certain things. So over here we're learning about specifically in the area of the Kabbalah and the deep commentaries on the halakha. And they're here, that's the debate, right? Do we learn the secrets or not? He says, and so the issue is that this writer, that the sage, and I apologize that I didn't do a research on this particular sage and his background, because normally that's how I'm about to speak, because there's so many sages to keep track of. And I'm reading it in English, and so the pronunciation is kind of weird to me, like trying to connect it to my memory. So the point is, it's saying like this: the Masha Harala. All right, whatever. Anyways, but the point is like this. I know I'm going over it. The point is saying, so he's going back and he's saying that the reason why there's different positions on how to deal with this issue is how the words of this particular sage was interpreted by different people at different times. And he says, he says the Maharal distinction between between the reasons of secrets in other aspects of Torah study may not is not is not accepted by all authorities. The Maharal opinion is based entirely upon the uses of a phrase "ein masurin." He said, which means it is not permitted to give over, or it is. He said, is not permitted to give over, or is not permitted to deliver. He says, Rabbi Weinbach cited the tshuva and points out that Tosfos most certainly rejects any inference based on the consideration of phraseology. Because the textual reading of the Gemara cites And he says, one who teaches the Jews, one who teaches the non-Jews transgresses a positive commandment and does not at all contain the phrase aim or so. Okay, so the person they're talking about is a Rishon. All right, so okay, so all right, so we're gonna stop here on this point, and to sum it all up, it's saying that there's a lot of discussion, and there's no. We can see clearly that there's no exact way to understand it. And the reasons why people understand things, the reason why, I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, like it's very, these are very big, you know, halachic debates, right? These are very big points. And if we had time, we could go through the different sections of what's being said because they're so profound what's being said. Like, for example, when they're talking about when they're talking about the fact that this one sefer was written as this one not sefer, but a response was written on this issue is responding on the basis of phraseology. And from out of this phraseology, they're able to he derives a certain understanding. But then at the end of this, he responds back and says that phraseology that he brings Rashi's grandson, who brings a point that says the phraseology in this context does not matter, right? So he uses that to rebuke or refute what was being said, right? Anyways, it's very deep things, and to really, and first to really appreciate, because we're just going through it. But the truth is, like later on at a different time, right? We would go through the sources that he brings and see exactly what's being said in that discourse, right? And then we can see why he's using it in the way that he's using it in the format that we're reading it, right? Because he's bringing his sources, and they make sense and they match up. But to really appreciate where he was coming from, we have to learn these Mishnahs, these Gemarot, and these the Rishonim and these commentaries, these things, and to be clear on that. But either way, we're getting a general point, and we're at least at a point where we're astute enough to have conversations, halakhic conversations, when people question things that we're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And to be able to bring sources to talk about these different points because a lot of people don't know. You know what I mean? And even though I may know that it's okay, but you have to sometimes like really dig into the halakha to to be able to communicate in a way that someone else understands. And so that's anyway. So any reflection thoughts?
Yeah, just to your last point, man, your bag gotta be deep. That's what the kids say. You gotta have your bag gotta be real deep. You gotta be able to pull it out. You gotta be able to explain it clearly and thoroughly. I was kind of thinking just, the power of Kavanah is kind of what I'm getting from all of this. The power of intention. If you have the proper intention, you know, that opens up pathways for you. It gives you the opportunity to progress, the power of your thought, the power of what you're trying to accomplish, rather you accomplish it or not, because success is entirely in the hands of Hashem. It's not based on you. So your job is just to take that step forward and Hashem will do the rest. Kind of like we were saying in our discourse about just, you don't know what tomorrow holds. It's not necessarily for you to know what it holds, but you know it's coming because you have, trust in Hashem. You have Emunah and Hashem, so you're good. Like, it's nothing for you to worry about. Even like when it comes to like study, they said Moshe Rabbeinu was up, on the mountain with Hashem. Like he couldn't remember his studies at all. Like he had to keep going over it. So it's like it's nothing to get down about. It's just keep trying. I think that's our purpose. Just keep going. Don't worry about the outcome. Just the outcome, like you told me yesterday, the outcome is already determined, and you're good. You already won. You've already won, So it's like having that faith, knowing that you're winning. The path, who knows? I don't know, but you're gonna get there, and so it's gonna be good.
The thing is, the Jews run out of Mitzrayim, and they take a risk with their life, right? They believe in this God, this whole thing. Things could be different, new life, and they go. And what happens? The Egyptians start chasing them, and then so what do? They kept running. And then what's right in front of them? A huge sea. So it's them and the sea and these Egyptians, running behind them, right? And the thing is, they get on their knees and they cry out to God. And that's it. That's this whole journey. This whole journey is to take great risk with the purpose of connecting to God, experiencing the challenges that come as a manifestation of God, and then being able to you know wait to see how God deals with it. You know what I'm saying? And that's it. And you do what you can. You try to achieve the biggest things you can do in life to bring Mashiach. That's it. We're just trying to bring Mashiach. Even if it's like you say a shachol nie bivro, but you put all of your mind, all your kavana, everything you have inside of it, and you're thinking about this, and you're in it. That is just as powerful as opening as a yeshiva. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all relative. It's all relative to where you're at. Smiling at somebody, calling someone, sending them a text, giving them energy. We don't know what positive action is going to be the tipping point for Mashiach. Mashiach is like it's like a cup, and it's like so many raindrops go in, and eventually that cup overflows, and it overflows to the point that the surroundings of that cup engulf the cup, right? And now the cup is now part of this big body of water. This is Mashiach. So what we're trying to do is get to that mitzvah that brings us to the tipping point, right? We want to get to the tipping point in that, and then from there, the whole thing implodes on itself. So that's what we're trying to get to right now. What that mitzvah is, what's going to happen, bro? It could be two people hugging each other in the middle of Texas. Two guys, they had beef, they made peace. That's it. And all of a sudden, the energy in the world shifts. But what is Mashiach? It's a shift in the consciousness. The whole world is going to feel a certain connection of energy. You're going to feel an energy, and that energy is going to make you want to do things differently. It's going to make you love God differently. It's going to make you see around everything differently. And then once you have that feeling, your visual eyes are going to change. Your hearing is going to change. Everything's going to change because it's something shifted in the energy. So anyway, so the point is just saying, so we want to, like you're saying, intention. When it comes to intention, we want to bring Mashiach. When two couples get into an argument, the first person who runs back to make peace gets the light. That person gets the light, right? Because the Satan created that separation. So the person who goes back and says, like, oh, you know what? Me, my partner, my spouse, we had a falling out. You know what? You know what? I'm gonna go and make peace, man. And then once you make the peace, you get the light. But that peace may be the tipping point. Maybe this is it. I don't want to do it, but if I do it, maybe this is the tipping point. Maybe this one mitzvah is the tipping point. Whatever it is, this is the tipping point. This is the tipping point for Mashiach, and that's what we have to be in that mindset. This conversation went tipping point of Mashiach. Anyways, I don't know if I'm doing Zion Lex today. We got to figure this out. Anyways, we'll figure it out. But we got to do the leadership stuff, bro. You know
Hey
what I mean?
Rob, you made me think about something real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So and I don't know if this is a intention that you're supposed to have, but it makes me think about Havdalah. When you overflow the cup, is
Mm-hmm.
that a kavanah we can have, like bring
That's it.
Mashiach? Oh,
That's it.
perfect. Work sure.
Yeah, yeah. That's the world overflowing with blessings. That's the word. The kalim is the world. The wine is the bracha. It overflows the world. This is Mashiach. Anyways, Baruch atah Adonai.